Okay, in addition to this problem, we're also worried about some things that will accelerate the problem. So though the amount of increase in temperature for the last 130 years is only about 0.7 degrees of Celsius, that's not a huge change, but it's large compared to some other changes we've seen. But it's not that big. So the question is why are we so worried? Well, one of the things we're worried about is that as it warms up, things will kick in, processes will kick in that will actually accelerate the warming process. For example, as the Earth warms, the ice melts, right? And remember, ice helps provide the albedo. The more ice there is, it's white, right? And it'll reflect, the Earth will then reflect more. So by warming up and melting some ice, you lower your albedo, which means you're absorbing more energy, which means you'll melt even more ice at a faster rate, right? And so it just, one thing causes another and speeds up the process. Okay, other things is that there is more evaporation of water. And remember, water vapor was one of those greenhouse gases, right? So the hotter it is, the quicker the rate the water will evaporate, which means we get even more water vapor, which means we'll warm up even faster. Other things also include, right, that the temperature decreases the solubility of CO2 in the sea. Just like the Earth, the water actually holds a lot of CO2. Okay, it just holds it in the water. And things like phytoplankton will absorb that and use that for photosynthesis and create oxygen as well, similar to other plants. So while the sea holds a lot of that CO2, as the temperature increases, it can't hold as much. The solubility of CO2 goes down, so it can't hold as much, and so therefore it has to release it. So increasing the temperature might release more CO2 from the water, which would just cause more of a problem, and if it really is the CO2 that's causing it to warm up, right? And then it would cause more of a problem, and it would just get faster and faster, warm up quicker and quicker. Some kind of doomsday scenarios of what might happen are as follows, and you should be aware of some of these scenarios. So number one, the average temperature they've modeled that it might raise by 2 to 4 degrees by the end of the next century. So in other words, in about another 100 years or so, it'll increase 2 to 4 degrees. Now notice, in the last 130 years, it only increased about 0.7 degrees Celsius. So the only reason why they might think it might increase another 2 to 4 degrees is because of these accelerating factors. So it's really hard to predict everything that's going to happen because the Earth is a very complex system. So keep in mind that all of these are guesses and predictions, and by using models of things we do know, but we may not have included everything that could happen, right? So a lot of these are our guesses. Other problems might also include having the sea levels rise, and they could raise up to 20 to 60 centimeters. Now, that's actually not a whole lot of height to raise your water. However, you don't need a whole lot of height to cause some serious problems. Number one, a lot of our major cities in the world are all found really close to water, okay, and really on flat spots too. So even just raising 20 centimeters would cause a lot of these cities to be underwater. Now, when I say underwater, I don't mean skyscrapers underwater. I mean there's like a thin, 2 inches of water everywhere. Now, the problem with that is I don't care where you are. You cannot live when there's like 2 inches of water everywhere. Okay, you can't live in a lake where there's 2 inches of water. That water will cause damage in your homes. You won't be able to live there. It'll cause mold. It'll cause, malaria because mosquitoes will come in and breed and et cetera, and it just causes problems. You can't live on water. I don't care how big it is. You still can't live on it. So that would cause massive problems where people have to move, and entire cities are basically destroyed just by a little bit of water. Other problems are severe storms. Storms are caused by the rapid change of temperature from hot to cold or cold to hot. This is why there's more storms in fall and winter than in summer and sorry, I said fall and winter. I meant fall and spring rather than summer and winter. So right, as these temperatures change, it will cause more severe storms. Also, we could even enter a new ice age. The reason is because as the ice caps melt and some of that cold water goes into the ocean, we have water currents that go from warm places in the water to cold places in the water. And what that does is it actually acts as a conveyor belt of heat. It takes warm water, right, and moves it up to cold areas and actually keeps cold areas slightly warmer than what it should be without these currents. And if the ice melts, right, it'll cool down some water in certain areas, and it would basically disrupt these currents, and it could theoretically shut down the currents. And if the currents shut down, what that means is heat will stop flowing up to the top, and so near the top of the Earth, where it's cold, will become even more cold, right? So while the Earth is heating up as a whole, right, so the equator is getting hot, the top, if it shuts down these currents, could actually make it really, really cold, and so the ice would start to then cover a lot more of the Earth. And it would just be the polar ice caps would just be huge instead. So this is another possibility of what could happen on long terms. Also, water can be more acidic, which can kill life. You can destroy ecosystems. There have been recorded incidences where, for example, I can't remember the name of the bird, I need to look it up. There's a type of bird that is endangered. It's because it usually feeds off of a certain insect, and these insects usually hatch at a very specific time. However, because the Earth has increased just a little bit in temperature, so again, last 100 so years, the temperature has just increased 0.7 degrees on average, right? However, as it increases just a little bit, these certain insects that the birds feed off of always hatch at a certain time of the year because it's always a certain temperature, and now they're hatching just 2 weeks early. That's it, just 2 weeks early. And as a result, these insects hatch, they breed, they die, and then the birds come in to feed, but the insects have already hatched and are gone. So then they're in trouble, and it can disrupt different ecosystems, and we're even seeing that now. So there are too many factors to really accurately predict. Keep in mind that these are just scenarios, possible outcomes that we're guessing and trying to model with the physics and science that we do know. Okay, we talked about the sea level rising, and there's one thing that you need to know that's important is that it's not because of melting icebergs that will cause the sea level to rise. For example, in this picture right here, we have ice in a cup. The water is at the very tippy top. If this ice melts, water will not overflow. And the reason is because when water freezes, it expands, right? So as it melts, it will take up less space, and it'll all fit in the glass in the end. This water is already floating, this ice is already floating. It's not going to raise the water level. However, the ice that will raise the water level is ice found on land. So here's a picture of Greenland, right? And all this ice that's on the land, that's the stuff that we have to worry about. And you can see there's the ice in 1992. Here's the ice in 2002. And it is definitely a heck of a lot less ice. So this ice is melting and then going into the river or into the ocean. So keep in mind, melting floating ice does not change sea level. Keep in mind that it's only the stuff on land. Also, other things you should know is that as the temperature gets bigger, the other reason why the water level will be higher will actually be because the water in general will just simply expand. Anything that gets warm will expand. Here's a picture of a railroad track that on a very, very hot day where it has expanded to the point where it has just basically warped and just destroyed this train track. Okay, nowadays they actually put gaps in the train tracks so that there's room for the tracks to expand and then contract throughout different temperatures. So all things expand when they get hot, including water. Here's an equation you could use. You do not need this. I haven't ever seen an equation or anybody use this equation, but you at least need to know the general idea that the water does expand, and that's one of the other reasons why water level will increase. So what are some solutions? What could we do to help solve the problem? So there are different things we can do. Number one, there's different technological solutions we could use. Number one, we can make more efficient use of power, right? So anytime we use power, we could make devices that use it more efficiently. So more efficient, high efficiency washing machines and high efficiency laundry machines and high efficiency refrigerators, and you bet anything that will use less energy, because we have to often create that energy, often using fossil fuels, right? So by using less energy, we're burning less fossil fuels. Other things we could do is we could try and decarbonize exhaust, like from cars and stuff. That means somehow capture that exhaust and by some chemical process just capture the CO2 in the exhaust and store it somewhere, right? I'm not exactly sure how that would work, but you could do something like that. That's one of the things they're trying to look into. Also, other things is instead of just trying to solve it with technology, you can just try and reduce the energy requirements that you have, right? So kind of like more efficient instruments. You can try and do things like don't waste the energy as much, or by thermally insulating your home more, right? That way you'll require less energy. You can reduce the amount of travel you do, or somehow use more efficient modes of transportation. Take the bus, right? So more people are taking this or going on the bus, and so there's less gas burnt. You could use also systems that combine heating and power, right? So an example of that would be solar heating, right? So and you can also use it to make electricity as well. Things that combine both systems in one, you save some energy. And then the last couple of things would be to replace coal and oil sources of energy with renewable energy sources that don't create CO2. And you can plant a couple of trees, right, which would also help and a little bit to reduce CO2. Some of the worldwide efforts I don't know anything about.